Hello everyone, in this video we are going to see about the advantages and disadvantages of Python. So any programming language has its own pros and cons. Let us see in this video what are the advantages and disadvantages of Python. So let us see the first one. Easy to read, learn and write. As we have seen in the features of Python, Python has fewer number of codes and so it is easy to read, learn and write. And since it have the many functions as the built-in functions are there, it is easy to write the programming also. Python is a high-level programming language that has English-like syntax. This makes it easier to read and understand the code. We need less lines of codes to perform the same task as compared to the other major languages like C, C++ and Java. So we have seen in the features of Java that Python needs only fewer number of codes. That is one of the advantage of Python. Improved productivity. So as the name implies, productivity means writing more number of codes in fewer time, less number of time. So now Python is a very productive language. Due to the simplicity of Python, developers can focus on solving the problems. We can write less code and get more things done. That is called as productivity. Writing more number of codes in unit of time. The next advantage of Python is interpreted language. We know that the languages can be either interpreted or compiled. Python is an interpreted language, which means that Python directly executes the code line by line. That means if you type a line of code and enter, we get the execution. So what is the advantage of this type of interpretation is, if any error comes, in case of any error, it stops further execution and reports back the error with the which has occurred. That means it will not execute the program till the end. It will stop when it occurs an error. So that is the advantage of the interpreted language. So which means we can easily debug the code. Next is the dynamically typed. What is dynamically typed is the type of the variable or the constant is not explicitly declared in Python. Python does not know the type of the variable until we run the code. It automatically assigns the data type during execution. The programmer does not need to worry about declaring the variables and their data types. In general, in the other programming languages we learned earlier, C, C++ and Java, we have to declare the variable types as int, float, char, string, etc. But in the case of Python, there is no necessity to explicitly declare the variables. Whatever the values we assign, accordingly the type of the variable changes. So that is called as the dynamic type. That means static type means the type of the data is known in advance. The compiler knows the type of the data while compilation itself. While in the first level, after we type the program, we compile it. While compiling itself, if any mismatch of data type occurs, we come across the errors and we debug it. But in the case of Python, since it is dynamically typed means the type of the data is assigned only when it is in execution according to the type of the values we assign or the values we give through the input statement. So it is called, so this property is called as the dynamically typed, which is an advantage of Python. That means we no need to remember which type it has to be, or we no need to type explicitly the type of the variables. Python automatically does this based upon the values we assign. The next advantage of Python is it's free and open source. What is free and open sources? We can download the software free and we can also use it without any problem, and we can also write some codes which can submit to the community. Python comes under the OSI approved open source license. You can download the source code free and start using it. So that means here when it is open source means anyone can write any functionality and add it to the Python library. that is called open source. Access is also free, and we can also contribute something to the community. That is one of the advantage of Python. Next, the advantage is vast library support. As we have seen earlier in the features of Python, Python supports many number of libraries. Libraries are the built-in functions. Those built-in functions does all the basic requirements needed for the particular application. Then the user can, or the programmer can think beyond this basic level modules. So a standard library of Python is huge, and you can find almost all the functions needed for your task. So you no need to worry about the basic functionalities and depend upon the external libraries. So everything is inbuilt in Python itself. And one of the advantage of this being inbuilt the function is that as it is inbuilt, it requires only less time to access and run the code. So that is the another advantage of Python. The next advantage is portability. What is portability is we write the program in one system and you compile it, and we can take the code and run in any other system. That is called as portability. In many languages like C, C++, we need to change the code and run the program on different platforms. So according to the different platforms, the execution method is different. In the case of languages C, C++, or Java, but this is not the case in Python. We need to write the code only once and run it in anywhere. That means we just write the code, compile it, and the compiled version of the code can be executed in any machine or any platform. However, we should be careful about the system dependent features, because there may be some features which is totally depend on the system what we are using. So in that case, we should be careful about this feature. And that's all advantages of Python. Disadvantages of Python is slow speed. What is that concept of slow speed is that since Python is interpreted language, it is dynamically typed language. For every line we type the program, it is executed immediately. So make the program execution slower, because every time you write the program or a line of code, it is executing. So what happens is the particular process is delayed. Okay, same way it is dynamically typed language means the type of the language is assigned while doing execution. So compilation may be faster, and after that when you start executing the program, the types are assigned. In that time it slows down the speed of the execution. The line by line execution of the code after often leads to the slower execution. The dynamically nature of Python is also responsible for the slow speed of Python, because it has to do the extra work while executing the code. That means that the execution time it has to assign the data type for all the variables used. That also lessens the speed of the Python execution. So Python is not used for the purposes where speed is an important factor, but when it is efficient that a new programmer can start learning, the Python can be used. And another disadvantage of Python is it is not memory efficient. What is the concept here is, while the program is executed, there are many memory management work done. What is that work is, once the program or uses many variables or data structures, after using those variables and data structures, it has to be given to the garbage. Garbage is the collection of the unwanted memory spaces. Okay, and after that when the next program or the next application needs the memory resources, it will be taken from the garbage, which is the pool of data, pool of memory spaces. Here, in order to provide the simplicity of to the developer, Python has to do a little trade-off. That means the memory management operations are not that much efficient in Python. The Python programming language uses a large amount of memory. That means it will not just to send back the unwanted memory immediately. It will hold it for some time, and that means it is using much of memory. That means large memory is connected to the resource, connected to the process, so which will again the slow down the processing. And This can be disadvantages while building applications when we prefer memory optimization. There are situations where we need to optimize the memory usage. In such cases, this disadvantages of Python is considered. And weak in mobile computing. What is mobile computing is the computation is done in an it is not a static one, it is a mobile computing. So it is Python is generally used in server side programming. We have two types of programming, the programming which is done in server side or client side. We know that every model now comes under the client and server model. We have many requests from the client, which is the user machine, and server is the one which serves the request. Okay, so now we don't get to see that Python on the client side or the mobile application side because of the following reasons. That means Python is mainly used either only in the server side, not mainly on the client side or the mobile application. The reason is Python is not memory efficient and it has low processing power as compared to the other languages. And another disadvantage of Python is the database access. Programming in Python is easy and stress-free. That means you can enjoy programming the Python language. But when we are interacting with the database, it lags behind. That means Python does not have that much capacity to deal with the backend, which is the database. The Python database access layer is primitive and underdeveloped in comparison to the popular technologies like JDBC and ODBC. So here, this JDBC and ODBC refers to the database connectivity. This database connectivity is very important while we are doing the bigger programs which has the backend and the front-end application. In such cases, Python is not a proper choice because the database access layer of the Python is primitive. Primitive means not much developed to the higher level. It is underdeveloped. Huge enterprises and they need smooth interaction of the complex legacy data, and Python is thus ready. Thus it is rarely used in the enterprises. So because of this nature, in the enterprises they rarely use the Python language. Next is the runtime error. As we know, Python is dynamically typed language, so the data variable or the data type of a variable can change anytime. A variable containing integer number may hold a string in the future, which can lead to runtime errors. So as we know that it's a dynamically typed language, means the type of the data is assigned based upon the values assigned to the data. Likewise, for example is given, a variable containing a integer number may have a string in the future because it is dynamically typed. When you assign initially, when you assign a value, integer value to a variable, so now that variable become integer. After some time in the program, the same variable is assigned a string value, means the data type of that value becomes the of the variable becomes the string type. So this dynamic nature of changing the data type is often lead to runtime errors. So that becomes the disadvantage of Python. Therefore, Python programmers need to perform thorough testing of their application. So since there may be bugs, so they have to make the thorough testing of the application they have done. So that's all the advantages and disadvantages of Python language. Hope it is easy and simple to follow, and thanks for watching.